I'm a creative. I'm a creative, Nino. Don't mess with me.
I know that you are.
Don't mess with me.
I gotta distance myself from this creative person.
It's probably good for your health.
I know.
Welcome to the Arcfluence podcast, where we chat about how design impacts the way we live, work, and invest. I'm Nick Karakan, your host. And with me, as usual, are my two amazing co-hosts, Paul Fatkins and Nino Samardzic.
You're good.
Slow down a little bit there.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, do I do Nino Slav? I haven't really introduced him as Nino Slav yet, but
that's fine.
We just call him Nino.
You don't have to call me Nino Slav. Only my mother calls me when I screw up something,
All right.
so you're good.
Well, I mean, you do screw up sometimes. So
I do. Quite often,
I'll hold that.
You don't.
Yeah.
You guys don't get the middle name? Is it just
No.
like? So it's like the short name or the long name for the first name, and that's it.
Yeah, it's actually we usually have like the first and last name, and then we get a nickname. And the nickname can be completely different than can be actually explaining your character or just be something that your friends bring up. You know, the moment of creativity.
My nickname is Nick.
We know that.
Yeah, the lack of creation. They
Same
gave me
mine,
all the creative by not coming up. I don't know. I don't know where this.
Same mine. Yeah.
All right, that was a fail.
Yeah. Let's roll.
This is episode 14, and we are going to be talking about our trip to DC at the AIA conference.
Nice.
Yeah, it was an amazing trip. So I think, Nick, it was your first time, am I correct?
It was my first.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Actually, I've never been in an AIA conference.
What do you mean
never. Honestly, now I'm kind of...
With as hard as you work, you should tell your company, hey,
I know.
let me go and explore a little.
And I've been member since 2015, I think. Yeah, I never went to the conference.
You know, if you're gonna sign up for it, if you're gonna be a part of the organization, you should be
active.
You should
be
participate.
Yeah.
Oh. What is AIA?
Yeah.
It's the
American Institute of Architects.
Yeah, thank you, Nino.
Yes.
And not only is it an institute of architects, it's a governing body. It's one of the oldest.
Yeah.
It's like a professional organization for architects.
Established 1857.
Is that pre-Civil War?
Now you're putting me really on the
spot.
Exactly. It's right around there.
Yeah, it's definitely.
It's right around there.
Where's my phone? I gotta look that up real quick.
Google it. But it was actually established by 13 members, and then it kept developing, and now God knows how many members.
See, Nino, you always impress me because we don't really have any notes here at the Arcfluence podcast.
Yeah,
at least not often. We just kind of go off the cut.
Yeah. What was the year of the founding of it?
1857.
Yeah, pre-Civil War.
Wow.
Pre-Civil War. That's
there
awesome.
You go.
Yeah.
So that's how architecture was actually important in society.
Yeah. I think it's important that whatever industry you're in, whatever professional, track you decide to go down, being around other professionals in the industry gets you to get outside yourself, outside your little world. And
I thought if you're a silo, that's very important to see what's actually happening around you.
For example, there was an enormous push on mental health, physical health, well-being in the workplace and in the buildings that we're designing. Yep. Like to focus on, humanity's safety, health, and wellness is kind of this new guiding light that we have around designing buildings.
And you always have to advance in your profession and profession itself because it's going to become redundant. You know what I'm saying? So the architecture needs to evolving in order to survive like any other profession, and that's like I'll keep saying one thing's like I still kind of regret because the architecture lost a lot of influence, like especially in individual dwelling.
Yes.
And I don't want these things happen to like a multi-house dwelling or like a
it's really funny you say that because the keynote speakers were talking exactly about that and how they're making it also a focus to bring back the importance of the architect's role in society.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
we're helping shape culture.
Exactly, it's not just like to build like a footprint that you find it online and just draw on a sand and just build it, give it to contractor, but the end user or potential customers have to recognize the value that architects bring to the table.
It's actually a decent transition to the small project talk that we went to, they were part of how they were set up was basically to make architects more approachable for these community projects.
Correct.
And it's like where you have a community project where every single dollar, like down to the dollar, counts.
Right.
Matters. Yep.
Because it's either like you hire an architect or you do the project. Like that's their mindset.
No, they're
in these community level projects.
Oh,
that are
I like
small
that,
community
actually.
level because it's like design fees, right? You're either paying your money there, or because the project's so small for these, impoverished communities, you're either doing that or you're paying for the project. Because it's these super small, like one was like a community garden like space where they kind of reworked an area and had like an outdoor fitness area. I think it was somewhere in New York, right, Nick?
Yeah. I forget the name of the other architect, but she blew me away. She was so passionate, and she's like, "I'll do this."
She lived with the community for that was the Indian reservation one.
Yeah, I think it was the Lakota or the Sioux, like formerly, like they were known as the Sioux, and it was the Lakota.
Lakota. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And
I think South Dakota, right?
Yeah, the history behind that was frightful and somewhat inspiring.
Is she native too? Or?
No.
Yeah, wow,
no. She's like you or me, just some random architect who's like, you know what, this is important.
Yeah.
She lived there for a little bit.
Nice.
Got ingrained with their culture.
She's definitely taken on that identity though, because when she spoke, she was very passionate, and she said "we," as like referring to the tribe, and also just the intent of the architecture design. Just for a couple examples, is like the way the house faces, like we're facing the spirit. It's ingrained into their spirituality, culture.
Yeah.
There's circles, windows for like again their culture, the way the house faces, the way it's designed for, and a lot of these are generational or family units because there's no money, right?
Yeah, and they live like it's usually like what you still see in Europe when family lives together, and there was like the younger couple just go grab the level above the parents, and they live there.
And we've mentioned this before. Yeah, we're seeing that on a global scale, even in America.
Yeah. So this presentation, there's two different people, and they actually won a grant. So that their design fees could be covered by the grant.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And then basically for the community, for them, it's free, right? But also it's like there's a little bit of this perception that to hire an architect, you need a lot of money. And so like this whole small project forum was talking about, no, not really. I mean, especially if you have a smaller project. I mean, that's kind of a little bit where we are now. We're not doing any big, crazy hospitals like you do in your day-to-day.
And I just got to say, like, I've seen, as an investor, I know a lot of investors. I've seen a lot of investors trying to cut corners, and you don't always have to.
No.
When they're not using a design professional, there's so many misses and so many missed opportunities, not just for profit, but for the enjoyment and fulfillment and just the lifestyle of the occupants who are going to be living in that space.
And that's kind of unfortunate because we have to keep educating our clients to actually they foresee the end product, and they can see like, wow, it's actually was worth it hiring these guys. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
And I think that takes us back to the first point, which is to go to one of these conferences to get involved. You're so involved in your day-to-day that you kind of lose sight, you get this tunnel vision, right? To step out and get others' perspectives around you, especially design professionals who have a certain experience and a certain eye for things. It opens your mind and opens possibilities, and you don't miss these things that
I wouldn't call it a vacation, but it's kind of a vacation because we get to change the way we're thinking.
Vacation.
I will call it celebration of the profession. Honestly.
Good job, Nino.
Yeah, honestly, just go there
that's the title of the podcast. Celebration of the profession.
No, honestly, now you guys, I'm already convinced, and I'm not gonna miss the next one.
Boston next year.
Oh, even better. It's
Boston.
my favorite cities.
Nino, there's a Ohio AIA convention coming up September, and guess who's speaking at it?
I heard something.
Yeah.
Little Bird told me that it's going to be Paul Fatkins talking about that.
I gotta refine some talking points.
Yeah.
We'll have to bounce some stuff off of you guys later.
I'm going to be up there with him just because I got half price on my ticket.
Okay.
And
I have to be there too.
Well, then you got to come.
Yeah, I definitely have to be there too.
You can come and help us speak to that, can't we? If how does that work, Paul?
It's mostly, I can ask some questions.
Yeah. Have your firm pay for the ticket.
Exactly.
He can pay full
that's a good
price.
point.
His firm can pay, and just come and relax.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I will sit and listen.
I did buy us mics though, so we can mic up when we do that, and that will become an actual podcast episode.
Yeah. But I'm going to talk about scanning and the importance of scanning from large projects to small projects. Because Nick and I, we use it on every single project.
Can you just remind us what date is that? What time?
September 12, 18, something like that. It's like mid-September.
Sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll pull it up here.
It's sometime between September 1st and September 30th.
Oh, okay.
It's in September.
That's close enough. So maybe we should actually put a little link down below in our podcast and just remind people
That's a great idea.
Time is the convention and who's going to be a speaker and what he's going to talk about.
Yeah. We're actually working with Danny to get a little update on that for our website, just to give some more information on it as well.
Okay, now tell us, guys, your experience going first. Where was the convention?
Well, I got to say, DC is beautiful. And
really?
It's been years since I've been to the Capitol, and I just love what's happening. Virginia has a lot of development. It's been... Paul, you got something?
Yeah, I don't want to... But, so I was close. September 15th to 17th. I was off by a day or two.
There's my detailed best friend over there who can't let things go.
I can't let it go.
Yeah, that's
No,
fine.
you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Because I'm like, it's in September and it's around the 18th. So I was right. It's right in the middle, 15 to 17.
I'm proud of you.
It's kind of close to my birthday. My goodness.
There we go.
September 6th.
Yeah, what are you going to be, 29?
I'm going to be 20...
Times 2?
Yeah.
Times 2.
All right.
Speaking of it's also your birthday. Happy birthday,
It is. Well, when this airs, it won't be my birthday.
I know.
As we record this, it's my birthday today. Yeah. You guys got me this beautiful bottle of bourbon. Thank you.
Yeah. And can you name it? And you said it like you feel both?
I've never even heard of this, but it looks really cool.
I said,
High and Wicked.
Yeah.
High and Wicked.
I picked it by price and the fact that it was the last one on the shelf. So it's got to be good.
When you're flying blind, that's a good way to go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Price usually helps.
All right.
And last item on the shelf.
Right. Now, I derailed all that. So development in Virginia. There's a lot of development in Virginia. That's what you were...
So I appreciate, the Corps of Engineers have designed those highways that going into our capital. There's boulevards. They're lined with trees. They're lined with parks and protected lands. It's gorgeous. I love how they've brought that together and developed it. There's a lot of it gives me this kind of New York City / Philly / something unique vibe where there's just...
Wasn't actually urban design, entire layout of the city based on Paris kind of diagonals and stuff? I forgot who was the...
Wasn't it the famous landscape architect?
Oh, yes. I believe the one...
Olmsted?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
He also did Central Park, I believe.
He did Central Park in New York City, yes. Yeah. That was Olmsted, yeah.
I know Chicago is Burnham.
Yes.
DC, I'm not
like
positive.
Burnham. I'm a big fan of Burnham.
Yeah, I'm not positive on DC, but a lot of thought went into how everything was organized.
It's all these diagonals and heading into the spot.
Yeah. No, I don't remember that experience because I was coming from... Last time I was there, I was coming from New York and I took the train in. Mm-hmm. And this time, Paul and I drove. And I'll tell you what, it's whether you fly in, whether you take the train, where you drive in... I think if you are thinking about, from an urban design standpoint, the experience of how you enter a city, just like you do when you enter a building, it's gonna yield its rewards, right?
I like it.
Yeah.
Once again, another admission. Never been in DC.
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
That's
my
all
friends,
right.
My friends.
You're not. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about.
It's not like going back to the mothership or something.
I know. Okay.
The first day there, we took tours of 3 buildings that got converted from commercial to residential, and then ironically enough, we have a podcast on that previously. Danny, could you want to comment or put a link to that podcast in the notes? And we just want to go over some of the buildings that we saw. One was really cool, and
we'll save that one for last.
Yeah, but
we'll build to the crescendo.
Yeah, yes, but they're all really interesting and important for for where we're at kind of in society with all these buildings that are not being utilized to their full extent.
So how many days did you guys stay there?
I think it was 4 days.
4 days.
It was great. And on
Nice.
the last day when we came back, we hit falling water in Pennsylvania. Oh my gosh.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's the first time I was there, and
First,
Speaking of never been, I've driven
Exactly.
past so many times.
Yeah. we
Yeah,
just
I
never
was
gone.
there 10 years ago. It was
Yeah.
a beautiful experience.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
It is.
they put in millions of dollars a year just to keep it, to upkeep, and it's
Upkeep, yeah. Because when I was
fantastic.
there, they were actually supporting the back terrace.
Yeah.
So they have to actually pour new foundation, which is actually pretty on the end of the Bear Creek. I think that's the name of the creek.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Bear Run.
Bear
Bear
Run,
Run.
yeah.
Yeah, Bear Run Creek. And they were actually, it was quite involved process in order to preserve the existing stone and everything and
I
foundations.
think they said $4 million a year roughly
I think
is their preservation budget.
Yeah.
And when we were there, they were looking at water infiltration and
Yeah.
determining all sources of where water is getting into the structure and into the concrete and wherever it is that it's getting
nature
in.
doing its course.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and it was interesting too. They mentioned something that part of Wright's thinking with this particular project was like eventually it would be given back to the
Nature.
landscape,
Wow.
to nature.
That's so
right?
cool.
Like it should deteriorate.
Yeah.
And so like when we were on the tour, they're like,
It's almost, it should
Do you
recycle
agree?
itself.
Yeah. Do you agree? Do you
That's so
disagree?
cool.
Like,
Yeah.
should it go back to nature
Well, we
or should
just-
we keep trying to
Yeah.
preserve it?
They clearly disagree because they're putting millions of dollars
Oh,
a year.
yeah, to maintain it.
Well,
but
it's a tourist attraction
Yeah,
at
exactly.
this
now,
point.
and they've expanded from what 1,500 acres, or it's like 5,000 acres now or something.
Because they joined it with the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge.
Originally was they bought 1,500 acres, I think, or something like that, or 500 acres.
Well, the family,
And then that's what the family had owned, and then it later got
donated.
conjoined with conjoined with the
What a cool
park.
story! Just I love
Yeah.
a good story behind
I know.
a good building.
It was so many good stories, and also it's a landmark of that period of time, that very unique and original design that actually.
Well, you know what's interesting, you know.
It's like the Model freaking T was still on the road, like
Yeah.
everywhere when they built that.
Oh yeah,
I mean, like
it was a Model T.
yeah,
And-
like just the technology of the time.
no, listen to this.
Concrete was a brand new material.
Yeah, but look at this. Look at the design of the car at that time and design of the house.
They're
and
parallels.
Look at the design of the house today and design of the cars.
We think the same way.
Yeah, cars
car
have come
out-
so far.
because architect gave up on residential architecture,
Yeah.
except really costume individual homes.
Yeah.
So
And that's what he said.
By the way, your friend Matt Rimac, how do you say his-
Rimac.
Yes.
Yeah,
Have you seen?
the new Bugatti.
Yeah.
I know.
If you haven't,
It's a beast.
Nick. If you haven't seen it, just go and watch.
I need to
it's
see
on
it.
YouTube. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's a beast. I
Speaking
saw
of
it.
car design.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a great kind of segue because the design of falling water is it's incredible.
It's
And
ahead of its time.
just natural systems, lighting, airflow, all these things that they take into account. And that's why it's important to integrate this into today's architecture.
And most important, didn't actually came over the night. It's actually its influence of the Bauhaus, its influence of Japanese architecture,
Yeah.
and that's why it's important that we, as a professionalist, come together at least once a year to elaborate different
and even
ideas.
This was at a time when houses were about $5,000, $5,000 to $10,000 on average.
Yeah.
Like they weren't that much. Cars were $500.
Yes,
right.
and that house was how much? God knows.
They ended up going way over budget. Clearly, it ended up being
It's a couple $100,000, I think, for the time. But it like in today's money, it's like a few $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
Rich
commission,
people spending still money
Yeah,
on a
and
house.
the commission
like
was
15%, and it was ended up being like 30 grand or something,
Yeah.
20 or 30,
40 grand or something like that. Yeah.
which just like he could have bought like 5 to 10 regular houses.
But
with that.
look at the landmark it was created.
Yeah.
I mean, it could look like the Princess Castle and copy of Disneyland. Instead of it was like a masterpiece of architecture that's
Sure.
in every book.
Yeah.
Well,
Some-
he
something
was
that-
also at his prime and world renowned. You know.
Yep.
And something that stuck with me too, even how you control the sound, thought was put into how you
yeah.
control sound.
Oh, explain more about it.
It was the windows on the corner. Mm-hmm. And I mean, basically you're sitting right on top of this waterfall, essentially right to the side of it. And it's like opening the panes. It's almost like you can control direction of sound and intensity
because
of sound.
they're like these little panes. They're open.
And it's
exactly.
I didn't know that.
Multiple openings, and so you can control the white noise.
Yeah.
When you sleep.
And when we were there on the tour, they demoed it. And so like they started opening like ones on the top, ones on the bottom, and it was like surround sound.
Wow.
Yeah. With the waterfall white noise. And then eventually they had them all open, and then it was just like
what I
would love to sleep in that room at night.
Oh my God.
For one night. It'd be great.
I also found it fascinating, like this house wasn't designed by basic architectural standards, because I don't know if there were too many back then, but it was designed for the actual family. So the family was their height was measured.
Yep.
Their lifestyle was
yes.
There was conversations around how they lived, how they worked, how they wanted to experience.
And did you guys see the sense of the scale? Everything is so tight in today's standards.
But they weren't that tall.
No, they weren't that tall, and they weren't that wide either.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're like 5'9", between 5'6" and 5'9", that house was designed for you.
And he purposely actually lowered the ceiling so he can push you out of these open terraces, so push you out from the house.
Well, actually the bedroom ceilings are higher. It's the hallways that were lower.
Yeah.
So when you go in the hallways, you want to get out of the corridors,
squeezed out,
and into those spaces, and then even pushed out onto the terrace. And there's balconies everywhere.
Yeah, and they're gigantic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was their cottage, basically. Their cabin.
Yes, there was cabin. And there is a guest house like above on the hill.
Yeah.
Now, that was built a little later, but
later.
Yeah. And then they had like Picasso hanging in the hallway in their guest house,
And a lot of these like the art from the Japan. He was he was so influenced by that.
Well, that had nothing to do with the AIA conference.
Well, no, it does. Actually, it does a lot. We can just jump it back, just like a reverse.
Yeah. It does because we we took our time out, our mental vacation or celebration of the profession.
There you go.
We got to tag that on to the end.
We just jump into the history first, and now we're coming back to the 4 days in DC.
Yeah, I want to talk about a couple of the keynote speakers, and I want to talk about the tour that we did.
Yeah, let's keep talking about the project. So go back to, that's how this all started.
Yeah.
So the first project we went and saw. What was your impression of the first one?
So can you get us the name of that? I totally forget. But
Park and Ford was the whole development center that we went to.
Yeah, and this was a commercial building that they converted to residential, but they didn't go full residential. At least that wasn't the intent in the beginning. They wanted to have this, because COVID was kind of happening at a time when this was going on. They're like, okay, we're going to create a building. And
No, this was pre-COVID.
This was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So then they were forward thinking, because they were thinking that this was going to be a work from home, a work loft space.
Yeah.
They sold
so
it as
you're
a work loft. So some companies would rent these out for potential clients that they're bringing in.
Instead of renting hotel, you actually have everything in one place.
Work from home.
Yeah. And it's not crazy, because the firm I worked for before, when I was in Chicago, we did the Tribune Tower. We also did 100 Van Ness out in San Francisco. So again, those were office to residential conversions. So it's not a new idea. It's been around. It just wasn't as popular as it is now post-COVID.
Right.
I love everything we talked about at the last episode.
What I really did like about the lobby space, so to speak, it did feel a little hotel-y, which I kind of like that luxury. I like that touch. I don't want it to feel like this. I don't want to see a bunch of mailboxes and then an elevator and have this be this
amenities.
Dark.
Amenities are huge with residential.
So they had conference rooms, they had breakout stations, they had telephone booths. They had
kidding.
All these places where you could take a phone call in private, have a meeting, do some work. There's communal spaces that are a little bit more exposed. There's some private spaces that you can get a little bit more, hunker down.
So yeah, if you're a small sole proprietor, right, and you're doing some work on the side or whatever, or that's your main thing that you're doing, great. Where you live is now also your office, essentially.
But
literally,
it's not your bedroom either. You go downstairs into a lobby and you could
reserve a conference room and you can have meetings with clients.
It's interesting. Actually, Hotel Lab was the last one when I was in Wisconsin. It was actually entire lobby looks like I'm in a residential space.
Yeah.
So you can see this like a mix of influences overlapping. Very interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the outside was...
It looked like an office building. They didn't touch it.
They didn't touch it.
I think it was cost prohibitive to do that much work too.
Well,
so
it's always cost prohibitive.
Do you guys know when was the building built originally? Was that
in
during
the 80s or
80s?
70s?
So I don't think there are any operable windows.
Oh, that's Mr. Air Conditioning doing all stuff.
Yeah, and they talked about that too, because in Virginia within the code, they actually allow for, like, typically residential, you have to have some operable ventilation. So light and ventilation is part of requirements.
Yep.
But for the Virginia code, they actually could get away with not having any operable windows and have everything. So they just left the facade as it was.
How tall is the building?
Like 40 floors.
Yeah, it's a big building.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, 40 floors, something like that.
yeah.
Sorry, it's just commercial. Just keep calling.
Yeah, yeah.
So what about our second tour?
The second one was a little bit more refined. So they actually, not only did they reconfigure and complete the inside, and it was a very similar concept to the first one.
Yeah.
Because it was right next to each other. It's all part of the same development. But they actually
Did some exterior work.
Yeah, they actually completely gutted the outside. They completely rebuilt the facade. They added balconies. They had to and it was a post-tension concrete slab.
Nice.
So they couldn't, nice and also not nice.
No.
Expensive.
They have to do it.
But they couldn't, when they did the balconies, they couldn't drill in or do anything
because
of where all the tendons are.
You don't want to touch those. Yeah.
No, the building, goodbye.
Yeah. Can you explain to our what is pre-tension, post-tension?
Yeah. So
later?
post-tensioning, you have a metal cable that's essentially inside the slab, and after the slab is poured, at the ends, you're pulling that cable to a certain tension, and then you lock it into place.
Yes.
And so that
when concrete cures, it's actually grab that is actually
28
inherited.
days,
Exactly.
28 days to fully cure, basically, after you
and
pour
it's actually that tension now is capturing this concrete.
Yeah.
So you can go thinner slab with a better
gives you tremendous strength against wind
greater,
wind loads, all that other stuff.
But also the same span or a greater span, right? With your thickness
with
of slab.
with less concrete and less weight,
steel and reinforcement, less weight,
and helps cut costs.
The only things that you cannot do it later is if you want to drill some holes and stuff, you have to be extremely careful.
So that was the issue. They x-rayed and they did all this stuff, and they determined they couldn't just bolt these balconies on. So they had to design this bracket, clamping bracket to clamp onto the slab.
Wow.
And then the posts come out and it's like a cantilever post. I mean, it was interesting. So they actually did some research and some thought into how they modified the outside.
So existing slab was post-tension.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so there's the only way to attach balconies, almost like a clamp system.
And they wanted to make these modifications to the outside, but they came up against these, struggles. How are we going to do it? Like Nick said, the cost issue starts creeping in, because anytime you're modifying these buildings, I mean, cost issue is always there.
Wow.
So, and even I think one of the presenters was talking about the different things that you consider in terms of when you convert one of these projects. They said site contacts was 10%. The form of the building was another 30% of the consideration for if it's a good candidate to convert. The floor plate was another consideration, about 30%. The envelope was 10% of it, so not a big portion. That's probably why the first one had the envelope intact. And then the other 20% is all the servicing of the building.
Yeah. So the score that they come up with to determine if a building is a candidate for this conversion or not, if they have a 70 or greater, it's a good candidate. If they have between 60 and 70, we need to have a conversation because there's going to be some costs associated with this. And if it's less than 60, sorry.
Yeah,
it's not worth it.
It's not worth it touching it.
Unless the building is gifted. So, for example, our third project, which is, by the way, I was blown away. I was just like, what?
It's like the location for one.
Which is number one thing, yeah.
And it was, the Point, I think it was called, right? Yeah. Right on the river. It was the
old Coast Guard building.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it was just this ugly...
It was the headquarters building.
Yeah, it was this ugly... concrete heavy block.
It was almost 1 million square. It's 700,000 square feet of space, office space.
Wow,
horrible.
And it wasn't that tall. I mean, it was in DC.
It was it was the footprint pretty deep.
Yeah. It was 500 feet by 500
Ooh,
feet
yeah.
and like 7
That
stories.
is so hard to convert.
It looked like a secret government building.
Yeah.
Like it's like the movies where you see the corridors and people are just walking.
Yeah.
They probably filmed some shots in that building.
Because the challenge there converting to residential, because you don't need big depth in residential.
Yeah.
And you need to have direct access
Natural
to
light.
the natural light. Exactly. So what are you gonna do with all this empty space in the middle?
You're
You're gonna love this.
Crazy.
So first of all, the important, just to make this a viable concept, is the building was donated.
Yeah, basically
to
the government
just do something with it.
We'll sell you this for $1, but you have to meet all these standards so that we can provide housing to our community.
Yeah,
there you go. Challenge.
Yeah.
And it was like from the 60s or 70s, some old office government building.
And have pretty giant spans, and
it's right on the river, just prime location, and they carved into this building and put all these light corridors in.
So
my gosh, it was so cool.
Like I said, pre-touching it, almost 1 million square feet, like 700,000 something, close to 1 million. But then afterwards, literally, they removed half of that. So the final square footage was like 300 something, 1,000 square feet. So literally half of the building, they carved so much chunks away from it. They took half of the building's square footage.
So they carve out that space pretty much.
Yes. Yeah. But then they added also a lot of outdoor space. They had terraces and balconies everywhere, pool.
Yeah, obviously like
gym.
Open courtyards, and so
I saw that pool overlooking the river.
Yeah. So when you carve out these spaces, they make them green spaces. So now there's literal parks within this massive structure.
And they carved it up so that it's actually like thoughtful laid out, like everybody has access to light and air and ventilation in these courtyards, and it's just beautiful.
So it's pretty much like a community, like with this gardens in betweens, and
what's really cool is they spent, since the building was donated, they spent a little bit more than what a standard conversion would be, and they got the building for free and the land in a prime location. So
and that's
the
what
only
made
way
it
it works.
That's the only way they made it viable.
But I will say this, because of that development, right across the street, they were already building a new so everyone kind of jumps on board when they see this opportunity. Oh, look at this! Look at these luxury apartments. Now we're going to develop additional stuff.
You see how you can actually, with the right policy, dictate the development of the city.
Yeah, you inject a little bit of life into the area.
Exactly. And how you can switch the neighborhood upside down.
And in a place where we have a housing shortage, now has an abundance and a larger tax base, so that they can make the streets beautiful and protect more land. So that
instead of to be a ruin for a homeless people, for a graffiti and stuff.
I think they got like 300 some units out of the building.
Yeah.
Housing
smart decision. Donate the building.
Yeah.
So
the thing that was really interesting though, so you're right on the river. They're in a floodplain. So they actually had to construct these floodgates. And when you walk around the site, there's all these pre-drilled screws that basically you could put up a barrier and then bolt it down.
If river raise up,
So Paul was asking about that, and it turns out when you take away 50% of a...
Wait. I want to ask you. So you're right on the river, right?
Okay.
You're in a floodplain.
Okay.
So think about soil conditions, right?
Oh, it's horrible, yeah.
And then now you remove half of the building. What do you think the engineers were thinking about if you remove half of that weight of the building all of a sudden? It gets a little lighter, right?
Yeah, it gets a light.
You wouldn't think, though, that the building's going to float away, but...
No, but that's what they said. They were concerned...
Because being on the water table's so high there, because you're right on the river.
They were concerned
the
hydrostatic pressure was going to push up on the foundations. All this concrete and steel and everything is getting removed. They were worried about the building actually rising up and floating.
It's like a swimming pool effect. Like it's almost like...
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
So one of the things of this is why the project was so crazy to convert, right? There's so much that went into it. One of the things they actually did, they went down into the basement of this project. They drilled these, couple foot holes, and then they bored down and basically installed anchors, 100 feet down
concrete piers.
Yeah, all over so they added 100 of these piers all over in the basement.
The bedrock.
To keep it from rising and floating.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it's an engineering marvel.
I
was blown away.
Yeah.
But that is, you see, literally it will actually just
and it
pop.
Yeah, and it was so weird because for whatever reason, they saved it to last on the tour, which it was the most interesting one. We were blown away by it.
But we ran out of time. So
That was
like,
a crescendo.
we were running through this project, like sprinting to get out and to make the bus to get back to
I'm going
convention.
down. I'm going down corridors we're not supposed to go down because I'm like curious. I want to see like these bolts, and I want to be in the basement and find out like how they actually attach this stuff.
And they were like, guys, we gotta go. We gotta go.
Yeah, like bus is leaving.
Yeah. You're either walking back or getting an Uber or something.
Yeah.
Paul and I rode those city scooters more like what was it called? Lime.
Lime, the scooters.
Is the color of the lime green?
Yeah.
Cool.
We rode those scooters every day.
Nice.
It was wild.
Because we were late leaving. We're like, we got to make up time.
Yeah.
That
Like,
is so cool.
I'm gonna get my steps in today. No for renting scooters.
I gotta hear the keynote, Nick. I gotta get my learning credits.
Speaking of keynotes, we had an excellent speaker. He is a teacher at Harvard University. I'm actually going to look him up because I bought his book here. But he wrote "Build the Life You Want." Arthur C. Brooks and Oprah is the co-author of this book. They teamed up, and I got to say, I'm blown away by some of these concepts and just in terms of happiness. Mm-hmm. So the function is like, how do we explain the science of happiness? When are we our most happy? And he really kind of broke it down. And he's a dynamic speaker too. He's a professor at Harvard, and just was very charismatic. And I just like how he said, we do get satisfaction out of when things are difficult. When you accomplish something that is hard, you feel good about yourself. Mm-hmm. When you're given something, it's not so much. Like when you cheat on a video game, do you really like have a sense?
No.
At a certain point, you're just like,
No.
But if you earn it and do something that's actually like something to be proud of and something unique, something that's, was a challenge for you, there's a fulfillment there. And that's one of the 3 things that he really dug into in terms of creating a happy life. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, it kind of resonated with me. And I was really impressed. I also kind of like the whole idea of not sweating the small stuff and just
exactly.
I guess he kind of described it as lowering your expectations, not necessarily your goals.
Exactly.
Like you're not lowering what you want to accomplish, but you're lowering like maybe some of the outcomes, or at least the timeline that you're trying to achieve these things.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. There was like a timeline. Doesn't need to happen now.
Yeah.
Sometimes to accomplish something, and you will think like, okay, this is the simplest thing. I can do it in a day. Yeah. It may take you a month. And then you figure out, wow, this is really wasn't easy as I was taught. That's a lowering expectation. That's how I'm saying. Look, just realizing that your first guess was wrong. Attacking this item. And that's a lowering expectation.
Failure's okay though. You're gonna learn. You're gonna learn from that. Exactly. You're gonna grow. You're gonna adjust, and you're gonna keep going. Don't give up.
Very cool.
No, what was the list though that he was talking about? So you had like his desire, like he said, his desires or his wants. There was like 2 different lists that he had.
I would suggest you read the book, but the
audiobook
is great.
The first was the bucket list, and then he came up with like the opposite to the bucket list.
Yeah,
and that was like what he then started, because there wasn't that satisfaction that he was getting from the bucket list, because he looked at it after a certain point and he's like, great, I've done all this stuff now. Right? And so then...
Did it make him happy?
No. So then he came up with this other... So yeah, I would agree with Nick. You got to listen to the book. There's so much that's there.
I ended up taking this test. I took it on the way... Paul, I bought the book and we ended up taking this test on the way home while Paul was driving. Yeah. And I found out a lot of things about myself. But basically there's the poet, and there's the cheerleader, and there's the mad scientist, and there's the
judge.
Judge. That's Paul, the judge.
Mm-hmm.
And basically
I think I'm the poet and the judge. You're the mad scientist and the poet.
I'm the mad scientist, yeah.
Or no, sorry, cheerleader. Sorry, you're the cheerleader mad scientist.
You are.
I think Nino's the poet.
And just to put this in context, like, for example, there are people who are on the more pessimistic side, but you need them in your life because they're warn you about troubles, but they're also like a lot to be around. Like you're very heavy, Nino, but
I am.
but what you say is extremely valid.
Yeah,
and we need to listen to those people. And then there's, the cheerleader who's like, everything's great. And the world could be falling down. I'm like, oh my gosh, be quiet.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's all about positive, negative. And there's actually a test in scoring that he came up with. It's the Panis test.
Yeah. And when I took it, I ended up being a mad scientist, and those are the folks, and they're the smallest group apparently. But
just for your positivity, your negativity was a different story. That's where you came into the other category.
No, I was higher on the negativity and higher on the positivity, and that's what the mad scientist is.
No. So it's two different things. Positivity is one thing. So that's where you fall into the mad scientist category.
No. Positive. Well, we can.
I'm pretty sure. Look it up, but I'm pretty sure.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's just go with my idea right now.
You just want to be called mad scientist.
The mad scientist, though, gets riled up about everything, and he's the extreme of both negative and positive. Cheerleaders skews positive, poets skews negative.
But to be that, you have to be the exact number for both.
And the judge, no, I think it's. Well, look it up. We'll look it up.
Yeah,
I don't want to argue with you, Paul.
He's a judge.
He is a judge, and honestly, judges get the details, and they're just like they're the operators, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
So I cannot be judge.
Just take care of it, Paul. For goodness sake,
I cannot be
just
judge.
Take care of it.
That's Paul for sure. That's.
Yeah. No, but
I mean, look at this. He assembled all these microphones and stuff. I mean, I don't even know how to turn on the.
Well, it turns out that the mad scientist and the judge makes a really good team.
Good. That's.
But I again, guys, the book is "Build the Life You Want" by Arthur C. Brooks and Oprah Winfrey. Definitely, give it a read.
And I'll say just the pillars too. He talked about the 4 pillars, right? So you have family, friendships. Mm-hmm. And work and faith. So those are the 4 main pillars that he talked about.
You see,
and not necessarily religious faith.
No. Faith.
It's a whole different thing that he was talking about.
Yeah, they're not pushing any type of agenda either.
No. But it's really important. You have to have that.
Some interesting things though is like they did interviews of people, and most people don't have. Is it 2 or 3? I can't remember. Really close friends in your network, like outside of your partner. Mm-hmm. And to have the relationships that we have in this room is actually kind of unique.
It is very unique, Nick. It is very unique. You don't have. There was surprising. There was surprising things when I came to the United States. How many people not really having the good buddies or friends,
and that contributes to longer lifespans and happiness.
Exactly. They're just concentrated around their marriage and their family, and when the things dissolve, unfortunately, then they're almost like by themselves, not having the friendship to help you in that occasions. You know what I'm saying? So
it's good. I mean, and also your partner also needs to be your best friend. Like there's a foundation there.
There is. Good family is really important too. I'm so blessed with that. So I think 4 of us, all 4 of us are blessed with that.
Yeah, I think it's important though to really think about like. I mean, a lot of times I hide in my work. I love to work, but I hide in it too, and just to remind myself of all the blessings that have that gratitude for the friendships and the other things in your lives.
Take it for granted. Yeah, that's true. We have that tendency when things go the way we think, but never forget the importance of it.
But I think the first speaker, in my opinion, was the best. I liked him the most. So the other one was Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
Yep.
The CNN correspondent.
No, it was interesting. I love to learn a little bit about the brain.
Yeah.
And then that's a healthcare fellow.
The healthcare fellow.
Yeah. So I know. Yeah, Sanjay Gupta.
Yep. So he was talking about how like a little bit of his backstory, how he got involved and everything, and then he kind of circled around in the end to talk about health and environment and how it's related to building and architecture and all that.
Funny thing saying, I'm actually working with another Dr. Gupta in OSU, and he is the head of the radiologies for a cancer program. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you say Gupta, like, oh yeah, there is another Gupta I know. Yeah, also phenomenal person. Yeah.
And then the last keynote was the costume design.
She was good, actually. I really wish I would have screamed out "Wakanda Forever." I almost did it, and no one did, and I was just like, "What? Should I have done this? Should I? Wakanda Forever!"
Did you say it?
No.
Thank God, because I was sitting right next to him.
I don't know. Literally for the next.
I'm not here. I'm not with him.
I don't even know what she said for the next 15 minutes because all I was doing is beating myself up that I didn't scream out Wakanda Forever.
Pushing that cheerleader
You missed
down.
it, Nick. You missed it.
Yeah. That's the cheer. Like I said, cheerleader.
You had one chance. No. I was upset about it. You had one chance
to scream.
She did the Afrofuturism. That was her whole, and then obviously her like crescendos of the speak was in the Wakanda Forever, all the Marvel, Black Panther stuff. She designed all the stuff for that.
Wow.
Yeah, costume designer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Wow. You see, like AIA convention and the speakers are from different fields.
Well, I think it's important. Like, this is a creative field.
Yeah.
And I think we need
That's all architecture.
I honestly think that creative exists everywhere.
Yes.
So there's just opportunities that we're missing. And the whole point is that the whether it's, we talk about architecture being the third skin. Well, what you wear is your second skin.
Yes.
So I mean, all these things impact the way we live, work, and feel.
Yeah. Oh, I like that third skin thing.
And how I invest.
I like that third skin thing.
I mean, it kind of is, right?
Yeah.
Your whole spatial experience.
You just came out with that, or did you heard that from someone?
No, I've said it for years.
Did you?
Yeah.
Third skin?
Third skin. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So your clothing is the second skin. And
I will say this. I didn't create it because I heard it 20 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. This is
I love it.
I've always thought of architecture like that because it stuck with me.
It is.
It really shapes. Like when you put on a great suit or just a clothes that really make you feel special, like that, it changes the way you walk. It changes the way you talk. It changes the way you
being perceived.
Move.
Being perceived by other people.
And how you move through this world.
Exactly.
And interact. Architecture's the same way.
It is.
When I go into a city that's dying, I feel sad.
Yes.
Yeah. And when I go into a city that's thriving and it's being innovative,
you just want to be.
I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pulling back to again, years ago, one of the things that stuck with me in school at Kent was when Hilton had one of our reviews and he was talking about spatial sequencing, and again, like these little moments, and then to connect it back at the conference, we actually got together with fellow alums, with Kent State alums.
That was great.
Oh, really?
It was great. Yeah.
Who do we meet?
Hughes,
yeah,
our old methods teacher.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the current dean was there, and he was talking about they're actually expanding into a new building, right?
Yeah.
So they're working on that. Yeah.
The architecture program is exploding at Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
doing very, very well.
Good
and they're getting a record number of out-of-state folks coming in, which is greater than I think any other college. I think they're crushing it. They're crushing it.
I was actually impressed with all the stuff they have going on.
Nice.
And they're doing.
They needed that. They needed that extra.
They're doing their Florence program still. Every student is basically encouraged and in many cases helped to travel abroad.
Very important.
They've done that. Like my friend's dad, who's now basically
20 years, 30 years.
Yeah, they've been doing that forever. So in the 70s, he went to Florence.
But they're also talking about doing something similar to LDAP and Cincinnati with
DAP,
these
just DAP.
DAP.
You're always LDAP, no L.
But they're always they're considering these really prestigious internships.
Do you know what else they have to do? They have to encourage co-op. The same the stuff that University of Cincinnati is doing very well.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And that's why they've had tremendous success and have produced so many great architects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, it was great to meet up with just again people. Yeah, we're getting close to wrapping up.
Okay.
But anyway, it was great to meet up with them. And then during the tour, Nick went to go explore again.
Oh, of course.
This is another good DC memory. All of a sudden,
Gensler.
And everyone looks right over where the sound is coming from. And there's Nick, and he just puts his hands up like, you caught me.
What are you doing?
First of all.
Exploring.
So he opened the door, the alarm went off, and it's great. He slowly rotated with his hands up.
Okay, let me ask you a question. You guys, you're in Gensler.
Yes.
The largest firm in the world.
One of the largest. Yeah.
They have, collectively they have like 70,000 employees.
It's
70,000.
the most famous architectural company.
And we're in DC at their beautiful office. And I'm getting all these Google vibes.
It's like an Apple campus.
Yeah. When I designed the Google office in New York City and Boston, I'm just like, all the old feelings come back. And I'm just like, they reached out to design these chairs with Herman Miller. Everything was specifically thoughtful and like, it's inspiring, right?
Yeah.
And then they have this beautiful terrace outside with these dining tables and views of the city.
And you just want to go there.
And it says exit on it, and I don't see any signage that says alarm's going to go off. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to pop out here and check out what's going on this beautiful outdoor terrace. So then I thought was going to get, the FBI was going to come down in choppers and take me away.
It was actually, as soon as you opened the door, it started alarm keep going.
Yeah. Everyone looks at me and I'm like, that was me, you guys.
I want to see the terrace. I don't blame you.
And
I'll probably do the same.
I'm still going out.
Well, you never went out once you got caught. You just kind of slowly turned and then walked away.
I was asking our tour guide, Nick, who has a fantastic name, was very gracious. And he said, don't worry about it. The reason that happened is because there's access to
an alley that you can walk up.
Yeah, so then, security issue. And they work on a lot of important stuff there. So there we go.
Yeah. Well, their whole federal department was
that's government. Government
thing. It was a whole separate room that was locked.
I didn't mean any ill will there. I was simply curious.
It was a good memory for me.
It's always served me. Sometimes it doesn't, but usually it serves me well.
Curiosity is important. It is very important.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, the trip was amazing. You got to come. Boston next year. We'll all go. It'll be fantastic.
I'll definitely have to do the Boston because I love the Boston. I was in Boston a couple of years ago and I love it.
Great.
So,
Yeah, Boston's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
Well, I think that wraps up our episode. Another great episode at the Arcfluence podcast.
It was actually a pretty engaging one. I like it, actually.
With that, we're going to let you go. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
This has been the Arcfluence podcast. As always, you can get more information and additional content on arcfluence.com. Please subscribe on the platform of your choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.